You think the AI race is slowing because it is getting harder. That is what most people assume. But that is not what is happening. The truth is simpler and more dangerous. AI is slowing because the system underneath it cannot carry the weight anymore. And almost nobody prepared for that moment. For the last few years, progress felt automatic. Bigger models, more compute, more investment. Every problem seemed solvable by scaling up. If something was slow, you added more hardware. If something was expensive, you raised more money. If something broke, you rebuilt it bigger. That mindset worked when the system still had room to stretch. Now it does not. The real bottleneck in AI is not talent. It is not data. It is not even chips. It is everything that has to support those chips once they are turned on. Every new generation of AI hardware demands more electricity, more cooling, more space, more reliability. And those demands do not grow linearly. They compound. A single data center does not just draw power. It reshapes the local grid around it. It competes with cities, with factories, with households. At small scale, this is manageable. At global scale, it becomes a constraint. That is the part most projections ignored. Companies planned for more servers. They planned for faster chips. They planned for bigger clusters. They did not plan for what happens when everyone does this at the same time. Power grids are not designed to scale on demand. They are slow systems. They are regulated systems. They are political systems. You cannot double electricity output the way you double software teams. Cooling is the same story. As chips get denser, heat becomes harder to move. Water usage increases. Cooling infrastructure becomes a limiting factor instead of a background detail. These are not problems you solve with code. They are problems you solve with concrete and permits and time. That is the bottleneck nobody was prepared for. The AI industry assumed that hardware would always be the hardest part. Once you had the chips, everything else would follow. In reality, the chips were the easy part. The hard part is sustaining them at scale without breaking the systems around them. This is why you are starting to see quiet delays, projects that take longer than expected, facilities that cost more than planned, expansion plans that get revised without explanation, not because demand disappeared, but because the infrastructure ceiling is closer than anyone expected. This changes how the race works. When scale becomes expensive not just in money but in physical limits, the advantage shifts. It no longer belongs automatically to whoever buys the most hardware. It belongs to whoever can do more with what they already have. That is why efficiency is suddenly so important. Not as a marketing term, but as survival logic. If two systems can produce similar results, but one uses half the power, the cheaper system does not just save money. It avoids the bottleneck entirely. It fits inside existing infrastructure. It avoids grid expansion. It avoids regulatory friction. At scale, that matters more than raw performance. This is the quiet pressure building inside the AI industry right now. The old model assumes infinite expansion. The new reality imposes limits. And limits change behavior. Companies that ignore this will keep building until they hit a wall. Companies that recognize it early will adapt before they are forced to. That is why this bottleneck matters more than any single chip release. More than any model benchmark. More than any headline announcement. It is not about what AI can do. It is about what the world can support. The next phase of the AI race will not be decided by who can scale the fastest. It will be decided by who can operate within constraints without slowing down. Most people are still watching the wrong signals. They are watching launches and valuations and performance charts. The real story is unfolding quietly underneath all of that. In power stations, in cooling systems, in grid negotiations, in infrastructure limits that do not trend on social media. That is the bottleneck nobody was prepared for. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Because from this point forward, progress will no longer be automatic. It will have to be earned differently.